Hello, welcome to GMT. I'm Kasha Madeira. We start the programme with breaking news in the Iranian capital, Tehran, where there have been two separate gun attacks, killing at least one person, injuring many more. Well, in the first incident, attackers opened fire inside the Iranian parliament, killing at least one person. In a second attack, an attacker targeted civilians near the mausoleum, which houses the tomb of the founder of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Khamenei. Well, let's speak to Rana Raminpour, who is a reporter for BBC Persian. Rana, obviously, these are details just coming in. This is a breaking news scenario. Just bring us up to date what we know for certain.
Well, we're still, like you are, trying to figure out what's going on. It's even not clear whether the attacks have been over. We definitely know that at the parliament there is a hostage-taking situation. A while ago, there were reports of the sound of an explosion on the fourth or the fifth floor of the parliament. We know that at least one person has been killed there. According to Fars news agency, 33 people have been injured. At the mausoleum, as you said, there were at least 4 attackers. One of them was a suicide bomber, including a woman. But it's very difficult. There are so many reports that come out and then they get rejected by the authorities. It's still going on.
With the parliament situation, obviously two situations going on in Tehran, but let's look at the incident in the parliament. It's really, there's a lot of tight security in that parliament. I know that it's impossible to even get a mobile phone in. So how on earth did people armed be able to get through?
Obviously, these are according to the reports that we're seeing. Apparently, they have shot at the security guards as well. They haven't been killed, but they have been injured. That's how they got in there. What's surprising is that it was an ongoing session. So the MPs were doing their daily jobs when they heard the sound of shooting. And even for a while, they carried on. They didn't realize that it was happening at the back of the building where the MPs' offices are. And that's where the hostage-taking is going on. But now we know that many of them have been asked to leave the building because it's quite volatile.
So we understand that that situation is an ongoing situation. Yes. In the mausoleum, obviously hugely symbolic, the mausoleum of the founder of the current Iran, the Republic. What exactly is happening there? What do we know?
So at the moment, we don't know whether it's over or not, but we know that there was one suicide attacker. They have found a suicide belt which hadn't gone off. So that explosion hadn't been successful. There is a photo of an explosion, what it looks like it's happened outside of the mausoleum, and there were 2 or 3 gunmen. But whether there are still more gunmen, we don't know yet. OK, well, Rana Raminpour, I know you need to get on and investigate more about this. On the line live now, we can speak to Mohamed Miranda, a professor of North American Studies at Tehran University. Professor, thank you for joining us. Just tell us what you know about what is happening now.
Well, things are still unclear. There were 2 attacks, as you probably know, one near the burial place of the founder of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Khamenei, and another in Parliament. And it's still unclear what's happening. Of course, one of the most important things that people are talking about, online at least at the moment, is the fact that Mohamed bin Salman, the Deputy Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, a few weeks ago on Al Arabiya TV, said we must take the war into Iran. And since there are very clear established links between Saudi Arabia and ISIS, according to WikiLeaks, according to Clinton's emails, and according to Defense Intelligence Agency documents, and the fact that Al-Qaeda too has been linked to, it's quite possible that the Saudis are using their people or their influence inside these extremist organizations to carry out the attacks. This is speculation. Since he did make this explicit threat, there's a lot of talk about this at the moment.
Yes, of course, that's speculation online on the social media sites. We don't really want to speculate at the moment, Professor Miranda. In terms of what is actually happening, we understand that the incident, what is happening at the Parliament, is still ongoing. Is that your reading of this?
That's correct. It is still ongoing. But what I would like to add is that the statements, it is speculation, but the statements were made very explicitly by the Saudi Deputy Crown Prince on Saudi TV, Al Arabiya. And the Iranian First Vice President, Mr. Jahangiri, has said that the Saudis have tried many times to carry out attacks in Iran, but they failed. So the Iranians believe at the moment that the number one suspect is either Saudi Arabia or groups linked to Saudi Arabia. Even if they're not, it is almost for certain that the extremist groups, Wahhabi groups, and Saudis and others, as well as Western countries, have been supporting over the past few years and who carry out attacks in London, as well as in Birmingham and other parts of the world, have also carried out attacks in Tehran. So I think people in Iran expect Europeans, Americans to put pressure on the Saudis to end their support for these extremists.
Professor Miranda of Tehran University, we don't want to speculate. Obviously, this is an ongoing situation at the moment, but thank you for sharing your thoughts with what is ongoing, those two incidents that have been taking place in Tehran. Of course, the moment we get more details, we'll bring those to you. We'll be speaking also to our diplomatic correspondent to get a little bit more details. And according to the Reuters news agency, Islamic State is claiming responsibility for the attack at the Iranian parliament and also at the shrine. That is according to the Reuters news agency, so-called Islamic State claiming responsibility. Again, we mustn't, we need to know more facts about exactly what is happening. But of course, we will bring you up to date with that. Welcome back to GMT. We're going to go back to our lead story, the attacks in the Iranian capital, Tehran. Now, details are still coming in, but we do know that there have been two separate incidents at very prominent locations. We know that armed attackers stormed the Iranian parliament, and in the second incident, there was a suicide bombing and also gunfire at a mausoleum housing the tomb of the founder of the Islamic Republic. Now, authorities have already called an emergency security meeting over the attacks as they try and restore order. Well, let's speak to our World Affairs correspondent, Paul Adams. Paul, obviously this is a developing situation. We are getting some images coming through from Tehran, but we know that this is still ongoing, at least at the Parliament building. Yeah, very unclear. I mean, there do appear to be shots of gunfire being exchanged at one end of the Parliament building. There was a suggestion that one of the attackers there, and we think that there were two sets of attackers, each numbering about 4 at the Parliament and the mausoleum, that one of the attackers at Parliament may also have blown himself up. But yeah, a very, very confused picture, into which it is worth noting that the first claim of responsibility has been reported. This is coming from our colleagues at BBC Monitoring, saying that so-called Islamic State has claimed the attacks via its news outlet Amaq. And that's interesting. And I have to say, when I heard about these attacks, the first thing that occurred to me, particularly with regard to the attack on the mausoleum, is think of the symbolism of that. An assault on the shrine of the founder and the leader of the Islamic Revolution of 1979. A more symbolic target you could hardly get, and one that is calculated to kind of cause offence among Iranians, but also, of course, among Shia Muslims, the vast majority of Iran's population. So I think a lot of people will be thinking about so-called Islamic State. And it is also worth noting that IS have been, in recent months, upping their propaganda against Iran. There was a video in March in Persian, the first time that had ever happened. 4 issues of their propaganda publication, Rumiyya, published in Persian. Again, apart from sporadic articles in the past, that's the first time that has happened. And it's, in the context of that, it's worth remembering, of course, that Iran is heavily involved in the fighting, both in Iraq and in Syria. And so when it comes to motive, it's not hard to see how IS might want to do something of this kind. When we look at the Parliament building as well, incredibly sensitive, because of course Rouhani, he led his campaign, there was a recent election there, on domestic security, and now we have this situation. He did talk during the campaign of having improved security,
It wasn't a central issue of the campaign, but clearly an attack like this happening so soon after he takes office for the second time is a blow to his prestige and his credibility. He had also talked, actually, during the election campaign, during some of the debates, about increasing civil rights to Iran's non-Shia Muslim population. There's about 5 to 10% of the country are Sunni, and at one point, I remember during one of the debates, he was asked whether or not he would be willing to appoint Sunnis to official positions, and he said he was. Generally speaking, there is thought to be very little interest on the part of Iran's small Sunni population in radical Sunni-inspired jihadi violence. But again, it does seem as though IS in recent months may be trying to provoke just that kind of thing.
OK, well, Paul, we're going to leave it there for the time being. I know you need to go and monitor what's happening. Our World Affairs correspondent, Paul Adams, there. Thank you very much. And of course, we're going to continue to monitor what is happening in Tehran. But we're going to go back